how does elevation or altitude impact or enhance the flavor of your coffee, plus one undesirable side effect? Let's go. Hey guys, welcome to Ispirare Coffeehouse. Welcome to CoffeeShop Vibes, YouTube's only show focused on enhancing your specialty coffee shop experience. My wife and I were coffee lovers, and we took our passion for coffee even further, and we started Ispirare Coffee Company, and then we opened our county's first specialty coffee shop. We love fielding questions about coffee, we love talking about coffee, and we love innovating in the coffee industry. Welcome to the show. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. All right, guys, again, I'm Mike, and today we're going to talk about elevation or altitude and how it impacts the flavor of coffee. Okay, the main thing, of course, if you got a bag of coffee, some of them, especially coffee, will say MAL or MASL, meters above sea level, like it says here on this bag of coffee. Now, why is that important? Of course, if you're a coffee drinker, even a quasi-coffee drinker, right? You know that most specialty coffee shops, or all specialty coffee shops, are almost exclusively using Arabica beans versus Robusto coffee beans. And Arabica coffee beans seemingly have more flavor the higher up they're grown. Now, why is that? Well, the main reason is because the cooler temperatures higher up the mountains mean the seed or the fruit of the coffee, which is ultimately where the bean is, ripens slower. And that slower ripening forces more sugars and makes a more flavorful coffee bean, a lot more fruit flavors. Very similar to wine. You see people pruning the wine vines so that the vines put more of their energy, the good stuff, into fewer grapes. The same kind of process is similar in coffee, where higher altitude coffee is going to be a slower maturation process of the coffee fruit, and thus more sugars, more flavor is getting forced into that bean or cherry. Now, what is high altitude coffee? Well, typically, universally, for the most part, it's 4,000 feet above sea level, or around 1,200 meters above sea level would be considered a high elevation coffee. Now, there are countries that are known to grow coffee higher. Ethiopia is probably the most famous. Colombia as well. Their coffee plants grow very high. That's why they can get some very diverse flavor. Ethiopia, of course, the fruits, the cherries, the blueberries that you taste in a single origin Ethiopian is really derived from that high altitude growing. There are other African countries that grow coffee quite high as well. Kenya is another one. Now, Brazil is probably one of the lowest altitude areas where you grow coffee, typically around between 1,000 and 1,500 feet is where most of their coffee is grown. Their coffees are going to be smoother. They're going to have more cream type taste, more peanut butter, more chocolate in them. So what does this mean? Again, it means more fruit flavors in the higher elevation coffees. Again, grab yourself an Ethiopian single origin, especially if you can see on the bag that it's grown high above sea level, and you will taste more fruit, more wine-like flavors. Maybe Kenya or Colombia. There's some great regions in Nariño, Colombia, very high up. They have a lot of orange in the coffee taste naturally in there. So very, very cool. Now, again, I said at the beginning of the show, there's one thing that high elevation kind of does that many people might not like. So if you don't like this characteristic in your coffee, then you might want to buy lower elevation coffees like the Brazilian coffees, etc. And that is, it adds a little bit more acidity to the bean. Of course, the blueberry and the oranges, you'll taste more acidity in those coffee beans, again, because they're a little bit less, they're a little bit denser, a little bit more sugars in those coffee seeds or coffee berries, and that adds the acidity, where lower elevation coffee, so if you want to drink a smoother, less acidic coffee, of course you're looking, like I said, countries like Brazil that grow it just above 1,000 meters above sea level. So that is one thing. If you love the fruit flavors, the exotic flavors, try to go higher up in elevation. If you want something smoother, low acidic, try to go lower in elevation. And that is how elevation or altitude impacts coffee. All right, guys, make sure you subscribe. We do this every 2 weeks, and then every week I share with you an insight on how to make something at the coffee shop. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you soon. Live inspired.